Hello, everyone, and welcome to an episode of the Dairy Signal, where we bring timely topics at your fingertips, at your ear level, whatever you need as you need it. So definitely dive in today, ask your questions, lean into the dialogue and the discussion. But before we really go into toe or in more depth, if you will, I also want to take a pause and give a shout out to our sponsors, our national partners who help make not only the Dairy Signal possible twice every week here at your fingertips, but also a lot of the initiatives and programs that you see PDPW execute throughout the calendar year. They help make it possible. So thank you. Thank you to our national partners. We definitely appreciate all that you do. As we switch gears into today's dialogue, you'll notice that we had a quick little switcheroo here, leaning in on the people-powered culture. And actually, I think it lines well with being able to pivot, shift, and lean into what your team needs as they need. So we're very thankful for Michael and his time being able to share, give more of a deep dive with us once again here on the Dairy Signal. If you're a regular listener, this is hopefully a familiar voice to you, Michael Hoffman with Igniting Performance. We're excited to have you back here today. So without further ado, Michael, let's lean into today's discussion as we go into people-powered culture.
Yes, let's do that. Hi, Cassie. I'm so glad. Yeah, okay. I'm in. Let's go. People powered. What does people powered mean anyway? That's a good question to start with. I know that when you reached out and said, "Hey, we need to do some shifting. Let's talk about what we did at the conference." And I first of all, I love the conference because the conference was based on people powered stuff. It was out throughout the whole thing. Even our keynote speakers, John O'Leary and the stuff, talked about the impact of people on people. And the breakout sessions lent towards that. I love the breakout session of the solution room, which basically tapped into the expertise of people around you. So, to kind of start off, the idea of people powered is the foundation of a successful business, no matter what it is. Whether you're in the ag business or you're running a dairy farm or any version thereof, people will always be the center of your success. Always, always, always. So when we say people powered culture, that's what we're talking about is how do we get people involved to own the experience of working every day. So that's kind of what we're talking about today. Oh, am I frozen?
No, you're good. So
Oh,
let's go
good. I'm sorry. I
there.
thought I
If
was
you're
gone.
right, I don't know if you're waiting on me to help you over or if you want to pull up
No,
your
no.
slides. Okay.
What would you
I was
like to
just like,
start? First of all,
let's
I love
roll.
the idea that you said that people should call in. So if you've got people that can text in questions, that always makes our time so much fun. I love it when people ask questions, but we got stuff for you today. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think you set it up well. Let's go there with the how do you get people involved? Let's start at the surface and let's go up from there.
Okay. Well, first of all, I've got a slide here. This is kind of that foundation. How do you get people involved? Well, first of all, I think let's start with an understanding. When it comes to people powered, it's tapping into the engine of the folks that get things done. Most of the time, when we think of our businesses, especially our farms, we're thinking about the cows, we're thinking about the products, we're thinking about the numbers, we're thinking about what we output. But as much effort as we can put into the things that get those things done, aka people, the better our success and the more of a positive experience in being a part of it. And that's kind of where the foundation is. Whether it's your family, these are my four kids. Um, my wife and I worked really hard at them. They're all grown up now. This is a picture of when they were teenagers. We took a trip out to Alaska. And that pretty much sums up the kids. I think it sums up every office, every team. You've got some people that are like my oldest daughter, who's in the plaid jacket there. She was 32 and she was born. Her first words were a whole sentence. She didn't speak for the longest time, and when she did, it was literally a sentence. And her first sentence was, "I'll do it myself." So yeah, my second daughter in the blonde there, she was 100 and if my daughter was 150 percentile as a child, my second daughter was 25%. She was a petite thing. And her philosophy was deny, deny, deny. She's our evil genius. She actually, she was probably the one most like me. She would open up the refrigerator door and the light would come on and she'd do 10 minutes. Hey, what could I possibly do to get out of the shadow of my older sister who, so she was that personality, very sanguine, very, very positive, very, very bubbly, but boy, was she mischievous. And then my youngest daughter, who's holding the water bottle there, we called her the manipulator. Um, she saw what the others were doing and she took the op. She was the contrarian. She would leave notes in my briefcase that said, "Dear Dad, I love you and I would never treat you like you know who." So, so yeah. And my son was just happy to be alive. He was the type that lived in the shadow of his three sisters. He knew he was different, but he didn't know why. He ended up having his own bedroom, which he hated. He just wanted to be part of the gang. Well, the reason why I bring this up is
Mhm.
our teams are run by personalities and they're very different,
Yes.
right? And the skill sets of understanding that everybody brings something in a different point of view, but everybody has a thread that runs through everybody else, which is I want to be a part of this. Otherwise, why would I stay? I've
Yes.
got options. It's America, you know? So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. So aside from the obvious or the big umbrella of, make sure you have a culture where people feel empowered or they want to contribute, how can you do that? Or how do you ensure you truly have that existing? If you're kind of doing I don't want to call it a crowd control, but if you're doing an assessment of like, okay, where are we versus where can we be? How do you start there and be like, okay, I want to make sure people are jiving, but that it's a culture where people want to thrive?
Yeah. I think that if I can implant that, I say it all the time. There's a phrase that I like to say, make me a part of the tornado versus a victim of the tornado. It's an anchor for me in the idea that when we make decisions to address things, it's for a reason. And almost all of them especially as a leader in an organization, how do I create a culture where people feel involved? It's
Mhm.
trying to address that phrase. Make me a part of what's going on, and I will feel less of a victim of what's going on. So when you ask, how do I develop this culture where people feel part of a family and they're even though my name's not on the sign of the farm, I still feel a part of the family. I feel like I'm a part of this. You've got people that have been working for a farm for decades and they are not on the name of the farm. Yet they still feel like they are a part of that. How do you do that? Well, if I've got different personalities, if I've got different people, different types of approaches that people take, then I want to start to pay attention to what am I doing to have them own their piece.
Mhm.
And so when I talk about owning or being a part of the tornado, I am literally talking about what can I do as a leader to help you thrive at what your piece of this tornado is. So I am literally asking, I am over communicating more as to um, what you need to be successful. How can I help you be successful when you're not being successful? I'm part of your solution to get back to being successful. That is my job as a leader, is to over communicate my job in helping you be the best that you can be in your spot. Um,
So, Michael, that's a delicate balance between, I don't want to call it micromanaging, but really helping either one person or one section of the team versus like even I think of like your leader level needs to also be leading, thinking further out, having that vision for that business. That's a delicate balance. At what point or where do you draw a line of okay, this isn't necessarily micromanaging, but this might not be the right fit for this, for you, for this spot, whatever. Like that's a little bit of conflict management, but that's also a very delicate and important piece here.
what is your fear in
Mhm.
saying why is it delicate? What's your fear?
I think from the concept of like, okay, if there's either one person or one section of the team that is continually needing extra assistance or extra guidance or like helping them, like, how can I help you do better kind of concept? Is it pulling you away from your role of the leader of the, okay, it's now infringing on other things, other duties that you need to get done? Regardless if it's your day-to-day routine or if it's truly like planning the business 5, 10, 30 years out. Like it's obstructing the big picture too.
Mm. Yeah, there's an old saying that says if you want to make $300 an hour, don't do $30 an hour work. And what that means to me is, as a leader, I have certain responsibilities. And it's not that $30 an hour is less than or less important than. It's just that my role is completely different. So I'm going to add value to it. So if my job as a leader is to look at vision and to look 30 years down, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, and then I've got people in place to do their jobs, aka $30 an hour work, then helping them do that the best they possibly can allows me to do this work. That's the whole point.
Mhm.
The challenge is when you say the balance is micromanaging, let's look at the most empowered workforce. And that is, as a leader doing the $300 hour work, if I'm doing the visionary casting and I've got the right people in place, I have to set them up for success, which means I've got to set expectations. I've got to get them to be accountable and bought into the expectations and to have thought through what they need to do to do their expectations. And then if I'm truly empowering, that's where I let it go because I've set them up for success. I've helped them talk through how they're going to approach their job, give them the tools necessary to be successful, and then let them go so that I can do this work. If I do it right, then along the way, and I set up milestones along the way to check in, how are things going? And how I'm checking in is, let's look at what the expectations were. Are we on? We celebrate. Are we off? We coach.
Yep.
And we allow them to own their job. So owning your job is not me micromanaging.
Mhm.
Owning the job is me setting you up for success and then touching base along the way to ensure that number one, you're happy, you're owning it, you're still on fire. And if you're not left out to dry long enough to fail. There's a safety net, which is my coaching to help you get back on track. If
Love
I do it right, then you owning your position is basically you feeling very confident and competent that you can do the job and I allow you to do it. So it's anything but micromanaging, but it is setting expectations, coaching for success, and then letting them do their job. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Clear
Okay.
distinctions. I love it. So in the same, I guess a separate vein, I need to just move on. How do you ensure that your culture isn't tied or tethered to one person, but is actually tied to the business so that it'll live long, long after this individual leaves?
Are you talking about the position or the person?
To your
How
question,
how do I know the position is tied into the long-term success? So it's not driven by a person, it's driven by a position. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying like as far as the culture, like the whole
Mm.
vibe, the buy-in of the team of everybody, how do you ensure it's not tied to one person? Say that person leaves, dies, whatever it is, but it's actually bought into the business so that long after whatever the circumstance, that culture of that team of that business thrives, continues to thrive.
Yeah. I mean, we're always up for change, right? Things are always happening. Things change, positions change, even growth, very positive things. I'm moving into a new position, which means if I'm moving over here, somebody's going to be taking over this. I mean, there's all kinds of change. We were just talking with a farm that they just bought another farm, a smaller farm to add. So they're adding 600 head of cattle, and it's another location. And the first thing I saw when they were considering it was their shoulders drop. And it was kind of like, oh God, I'm just a man. How am I going to do this? When in reality, we just begun to think of what's necessary to make that happen. It can't all be one person. So there must be a culture of continuous improvement of what's needed on my end to step up in times when we need it. That is to me, a culture. Well, let's back up a little bit. A culture is the way we do it as an organization in a nutshell. That's what culture is. This is the way we do it. And if you've got, let me hold up a mirror. If you've got a culture that is very positive, when the tornado rises, we have a tendency to do this as a group as opposed to this. We either come together when the tornado rises and we all have to step up and help each other, or we fall apart because the tornado is so huge and people use that as an excuse to behave poorly. That's a sign of a very good culture when we get better under pressure because we all kind of own our positions. We know what it takes to be successful, and we can help other people when times are needed. I like that type of culture. That's created. It's not a guarantee. So how do you foster that?
Yes.
Well, you foster that with over communication of stating this is the way we do it. So for instance, if you've got let's take this thing. We've got change coming down the road. We are acquiring another, and in this case, it was another 600 head at a different location, but we're incorporating into the thing. You may be in a situation where we've got change coming up. We've got 4 people pregnant in the office, and that means that in the next 6 months, we're going to have to do some juggling with people because we want to support new moms, yet we got to get the work done, all this good stuff. I mean, it could be a person is being promoted into a new position, and now we've got to backfill that position. How do we go about doing that? Okay, so it's any type of change. Over communication is the secret sauce. It's getting things on the table. It's having, if needed, more meetings on the specific tasks at hand. It's saying, here's what the need is. What do we want to do about it? And that last question is the secret sauce of developing an own it type of culture. Is instead of saying, the onus is on the leader to come up with the plan. It's developing their people to think and do and have an opinion before it's needed, so that when it's needed, people are already in that frame of mind that they can have an opinion, they can throw out ideas, they can take ownership and know that it's going to be safe. They have an opinion, and it might not be needed, and so that doesn't crush me to go, oh my gosh, I threw out an opinion once before and it was never needed, and so I'm never going to give an opinion again. We've worked through these things ahead of time, so that when it's needed, it's there.
So you've talked about things in the past like psychological safety. I think that ties in well with this.
I was just about to bring that up. I didn't know if that was going to be, if
Okay.
this was a good time to do it. That's what you just saw, that pause was me going, is this, okay. I met a gentleman, his name is Hernando Duarte, and I hope he's listening, and I hope you
Really
reach out
cool
to him.
guy. Really
What-
cool guy.
Really cool guy, really cool
Yes.
guy. We had a brief conversation at the conference, which by the way is one of the main reasons why you want to come to the conference, is because you just meet the best people. And we had just a brief time to chat, and I went, man, I would love for him to do a breakout session. But in our short time, he said something so succinctly that probably does a heck of a lot better job than my rambling over the last 15 minutes. And he talked about psychological safety. And one of the things that he brought up is do you have a culture that you've created over time in creating safety around how people see themselves in their position? And he gave a couple of examples. I asked him, I said, give me some examples of psychological safety. He said, is it safe Do I feel included, inclusive safety? Do I feel included in the day-to-day choices where appropriate that my opinion is needed? Is it safe to be a person who is learning and I don't have to have all the answers? In other words, I can suck sometimes and I'm not killed about it. I'm not killed for it. There's a learning atmosphere here. We are all getting out of our roles and sort of adding, a continuous learning type of atmosphere. Is
So it's
it
almost like the safety net of like failure, almost not necessarily like
That's a great
catastrophic,
way of
but
putting
like
it.
asking questions but not having the answers or trying something and it just not working.
Yes, having a safety net of not failure, but fail. I had a boss called it failing forward.
Yeah.
It's okay to make a mistake as long as we're learning from it. As a matter of fact, we encourage it because that's where most of the learning takes place. So that atmosphere of learning, I'll tell you what it does. When you create a safety net of failure, what you do is you're creating a safety net of people trying things, going out of their way to look at things differently. And so it does so many positive things when we have a culture of learning. Um, which also ties into the other things that are on that slide. A safety net of contributing. I can throw out an idea that may be completely weird and off what the norm, and it would still be taken into consideration. Doesn't mean we have to use everything that I bring up, but there's that culture of openness to contribute. I really do want your opinion. I've got things to say on each of these, but that a safety net of participation, you can throw out an idea and you're not going to be chided about it. You're not going to be teased about it or anything like that. You're safe to throw out an idea and to challenge the status quo. The philosophy, if we always do what we've always done, we'll always get what we've always got. So if people say, what are some things that I can do to start building a culture of ownership, I would look at these five things. Ask yourself, what do we do on purpose to have people feel included? Um, it could be in part in gatherings. It could be in meetings. It could be me as a leader going out of my way, even though we're talking about herd management. I may ask my feed people ideas in discussions that have nothing to do with them, just to feel incorporated. Um, yeah, when it comes time to learning, I am going out of my way to ask people what they need to add to their bags as an investment in their future, as far as extended learning type of opportunities that maybe PDPW provides. Going out of my way to make sure that everybody is asked or invited in decision-making processes where I can to help them feel like they can contribute and participate. And I'm always going out of my way to say, how can we do this differently to show them that I'm always challenging the status quo. Starts to foster those types of things in a culture as a
So
leader.
continuing on that line then, Michael, if I don't want to say pressure test, but if you're looking at your own team and you're like, I want them to own it, and maybe
Mhm.
they're not quite there, how do you push it? How do you continue to develop or evolve that? Is that, I mean, hopefully everybody takes ownership and wants to embody that and pulls that out of each other. But if it's not quite there, what are some examples of how you can either start it or foster it?
Yeah, I will hear. I'm going to tell you right up front that sometimes when we ask our people their opinions, because they heard Mike say we should ask their opinions, and I finally do, and I've never done it before, you're going to get deer in the headlights because sometimes we've trained our people not to have opinions. Because I've always told them what to do, or they've waited for me to say, here's where we're going, this is how we're going to do it. And by the way, just because I'm creating an environment of empowerment and inclusion and contribution and things like that doesn't necessarily mean that I can't give orders anymore. As a matter of fact, they don't get the chance, they don't get to pick their goals. That's part of the big thinking and the vision of the business or the team, but they always have contribution into the how. And
Okay.
that philosophy has got to change in my mindset a little bit, that they're closer to the situation than I am, so they're worthy of asking. And it could be little things. So my big tip to you is to find little ways to ask for input. And don't be surprised that they may not have input right away. Don't let them stop you from continuing to ask in other things. Because what I want leaders to do is to train their people to have an opinion. So go out of your way to say, what do you think? How would you approach this? Give me your side of the story. What do I need to know from your point of view? Those type of involvement questions start to train my people that I'm coming to you for an opinion. Start to have one. And if they don't right away, that's okay. Continue to ask, and you'll start to get them to say, okay, they really do want my opinion. And by the way, when they give it, praise it, thank them for it, acknowledge it every time. And you'll start to train your people that you really do want their insights and their input.
Love that.
Does that help?
I do. I think that's a nice tactical to kind of reflect back on your team and be like, all right, let's
Yeah.
grow this. I love it.
Yep. If you've got a team that you've I want to foster more participation. But there's not really a lot of things to participate. Everybody does their jobs on the farm. I mean, we've got 5 people, 5 slots. They do their job, they own their job. Where's the participation? Well, creating a culture of ownership also includes creating what it's like to work here. So find things to be inclusive about. Don't plan the company Thanksgiving dinner by yourself anymore. Turn it over. Find things to give to the people that are there that might not be so heavy that you're adding to their job log, but could involve them in some participation on the cultural side. When we get together, give somebody the permission to run the food for the meetings. Switch it out. Have somebody plan the parties. That I mean, by the way, if you're not having parties at least once a quarter, you're doing it wrong. I just telling you right now. You need to gather your people that is not work related. But you don't have to think that through. Let them do it. Find
The
ways
fun
to.
delegation.
Yes, 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 and you don't want to delegate it to where they're feeling, oh my gosh, I can't do that and my job. But you're giving them a piece of the family that they can participate in, that will start to open up doors that I own this. It's amazing to me in Harvard studies that come back all the time. I was just reading one. Our good friend Dr. Kite put me on to a couple of really great studies with people, and one of the things that we find with happiness, with ownership was a big word. Happiness was a really big word. How do you build happiness in an organization? Ownership, family was a big word that was used. How do you build those power words? And the answer is involvement. Involvement, involvement, involvement. It's not just my job. It's involvement of the things that we do when we get here. It's the atmosphere. It's who decided what the break room looks like. Why aren't there pictures of our families on the wall? We talk about them all the time. I'll give you an example. We just did one where we're working with, it's a 90-day culture reset, I'm calling it. So it's 90 days of working with an organization, just 90 days. We got 3 months. And so we find out, well, what do you want it to be like here? Okay, so how are we going to go about doing that? And then we come up with these things that kind of change the shift. And one of them, and which is common in all of them, is how do I get my people to want to participate? Well, you've never asked them to participate, so it's not that they don't want to. You're just not giving them opportunity to do it. So let's find ways to do it. And then we're going to add 3 things. We're going to add fun, play. We're going to add play to work. Can you imagine play at a farm? It sounds dangerous. Well, yeah, but if we're not having fun, the cows are going to feel it. So I want joy, I want fun, I want out of proportion to the circumstances, and I want random and unexpected. Those are the 3 charges. And so they delegated St. Patrick's Day. They delegated, they picked out all their favorite holidays throughout the year, and
Okay.
they gave each employee ownership of the holiday. And we just did St. Patrick's Day, and what they what this one person did was they had a Snapchat. They call it a Snapchat challenge, which everybody was supposed to. And these guys are they're pool cleaners, is what they do. So they're out on the farm. They don't work on the same building. They're out cleaning pools all day. It's called AquaCare, and they're the largest pool cleaner in the Dallas Fort Worth area.
Nice.
These guys, they work in overalls all day. They clean pools. They're not the joke is they're not the first person you invite to a party, which I
Oh.
found to be completely false. These guys are hilarious and they want to play. And so the person who did St. Patty's Day set a Snapchat challenge, and they gave them fun things. They gave them glasses, they gave them hats, they gave them all kinds of things around St. Patty's Day. And they said, while you're out there, send in photos, selfies of yourself celebrating St. Patty's Day. And the guys are like, "Are you kidding me? This is the stupidest thing ever." And they left going, "Oh, this is going to be disastrous. Nobody's going to do it. Nobody's going to do it." Are you kidding? It the I wish I brought a couple of examples. These guys went nuts. They got people involved. There were animals involved. It was yeah, there it was the most creative thing I'd seen in a long time. They came to life. The leadership didn't run it. They delegated to somebody else. They said, have so here are your three criteria. Must be fun, must be random, must be out of proportion to the circumstances, and there's no budget.
Nice. That
And
helps.
it was amazeballs. So what I'm finding is that that set the bar. This was not the first one because Valentine's Day was off the charts. So now the people are going, oh crud, I've got Arbor Day. What am I going to do with that? So and yeah, and it's just, the chat it just snowballs. So
Mhm.
the big lesson is find things to do to get your people to go, you run this piece. Add some fun here. Don't make it too heavy, but just build the involvement and you'll see what happens. Because
Or
I will tell you this, Cassie, when it comes time to, okay, now I need real help in this problem. We've got this coming down the pike. Gathering the teams and saying, here's the issue, here's what we're facing, how do we want to approach it? You're going to have people that have more opinions. They're going to feel included. They're going to feel ownership, and they're going to feel like they can challenge the status quo. And
Mhm.
everything rises as far as input and quality and people stepping up because they feel a part of it, not a victim of it.
Absolutely. And to tail off of that snowball effect, it also helps people in a new way to celebrate the wins, even the smallest one. It kind of helps champion the camaraderie amongst each other too.
Yeah, the first thing I do in this 90 reboot challenge is I spend the first week just with the leadership, and one of the question I ask them is, some people, I think it was the CEO of, I just left my brain. It's a company that you would know. You might not know. It's a franchise, Shake Shack. Have you ever heard of Shake
Vaguely
Shack?
familiar with them. Can't say I've
Yeah.
sampled it, but I'm familiar.
Shake Shack. Oh, really good. Great fun food. But the CEO had a philosophy that he said culture is determined by what we celebrate and what we tolerate.
Ooh.
And so what that is to me is a challenge that we are coaches, and our culture is that you are never left alone. If you're off, I'm going to tell you. But when you're on, I'm going to tell you. And we don't live in a fog of if I'm doing well or not. And so that culture is of celebration is often overlooked, especially at a dairy farm. It's all about work. Our cows never rest, so we don't either. Well, that don't work with humans. We have to find times to celebrate. I don't care if it's birthdays, if it's Friday fun days. I don't, my family and I started a thing we called Champagne Fridays. And we
Ooh.
stole it from my nephew because we were burned out of our house and we were nomadic for about 7 months. and it was depressing, and we were tired of living in a hotel room, and I had four teenagers that didn't have all their stuff. It was horrible. So
Mhm.
we started saying, okay, Friday we got through another week. We're gonna celebrate. You can invite anybody you want, and it's just an open house from 5 to 9. It's just come on over, and nothing's planned. We're just going to have food on the table and bring wine, and we're going to have if we play games, great. If not, but we're just opening up the doors and we're celebrating another day. We call it Champagne Fridays. It has lasted for over a decade. I think our fire was in 2010. So it's
Okay.
15 years, and we still have Champagne Fridays because it brings our family together
Hmm.
just because. And we don't do that enough on at dairies.
Hmm.
Who was it? David Trimmer. I think one of the things I loved that he did out in his farm was they had barbecues. It's just a team barbecue. That's all it is. There's no agenda. There was no reason for doing it. We just have team barbecues every once in a while. My gosh, if you're not bringing your teams together for stuff like that, you're missing the boat. We work way too hard. Build your team, have more fun, celebrate.
Absolutely. I love that. I love all of that. So, Michael, as we round out today's session, today's time with you, the cup of Hoff, if you will, what would be maybe, I don't want to boil it down to one, but if we were going to walk into this next week, walk into this year here, still young, what would be two things that you would challenge us? Let's do it this week, that you would challenge us to look back at our team and be like, you can do this. I challenge you to either assess or build in something. What's your challenge to our listeners today?
Well, I'm going to challenge you with the process. And the process is, let's take Hernando's, Mr. Duarte's, Professor Duarte's, actually. Let's take his approach. No matter what you think this means, ask yourself this: how safe is it to be a part of this team? Psychologically safety. What am I doing to create and foster an atmosphere of safety where people feel included, that we're never done learning, that I can contribute, that I'm asked and want to participate, and I can challenge the status quo. What am I doing as a leader to foster that type of safety? And the challenge for you personally, so that's a process. Look at the things where you gather your people or you're talking to your people. How do I create that safety? And then the challenge is for you personally as a leader is I want you to verbalize your thank yous more this week. I want you to verbalize your observations to your people more this week. That's my challenge to you. I think we live in a deficit of information about ourselves. And if there's one thing that I have seen have more positive impact on a team, it's a leader that communicates with their people more effectively. And if we're going to start somewhere, just open up your eyes and look to see where people are doing things well and tell them. Say it, verbalize it, and watch what happens.
Say it and mean it. Absolutely. Thank
Yes,
you.
say it and mean it.
Thank you. And thank you for your time here, Michael. It's always a pleasure sitting down with you and just having this chit chat. I think it was a great dialogue. So thank you. And thank you for the listeners who tuned in here today on the Dairy Signal. And one more important thank you goes to our national partners who, again, help make the Dairy Signal possible. It's at your fingertips every Tuesday and Thursday if you want to listen live, and otherwise, go through that library. There is a plethora of topics, information, experts
So,
at your fingertip at your will when you need it. So definitely utilize this tool. But again, thank you to those national partners who help make the Dairy Signal possible, and a lot of the calendar that's coming out pretty soon here for PDP. They help make it possible as well. So again, without further ado, everyone, thank you for tuning in, and we hope to see you back at the Dairy Signal. Take care, everyone.
bye bye.